The world's best anglers are in Kentucky for the next event on the Walmart FLW Tour. Today on FLW Outdoors, we'll tell you why Dan Moorhead owns this lake and why all eyes are on the runaway leader in the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race. Hank Parker joins us to help preview the tournament with 3 top anglers. He'll fish with Moorhead, Kevin VanDam, and Takahiro Omori. It all starts right now on FLW Outdoors. Hello and welcome to FLW Outdoors. I'm Carlton Wing with Taylor Carr and Hank Parker, and today we're joining you from Kentucky Lake, the 5th stop on the Walmart FLW Tour.
We better hurry, guys. This water is right behind us, but in a few minutes it might be at our shoes. Hank, this lake is coming up like crazy.
These 4 guys, this is the 5th stop, and they have had no normality. It's either a drain lake or a flooded lake, and so we got a flooded lake all over again.
There was EverStart held here 2 weeks ago. David Young of Mayfield, Kentucky won with 2015. But does that tell us anything, given how much the lake has come up?
You know, they caught those fish out of bushes, and now those same bushes that they caught in the EverStart tournament are probably, the fish caught the fish out of are probably 8 or 9 foot deep, so now that's deep water structure. I think you can throw it all out the window.
A lot of attention at this tournament is going to be on Dan Moorhead. He is the leader in the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race. He's had great success here on Kentucky Lake. He won the last FLW event here. He won the EverStart event here. He's won several BFLs as well, and goes into this tournament with a 51-point lead in the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race over David Dudley, who's in 2nd place. Then it's Tommy Biffle, Andy Morgan, and Mickey Bruce. A lot of attention and a lot of pressures on Dan Moorhead.
Well, you know, he's got a great lead, but he's not comfortable with that lead. I talked to him just the other day, and he wants more, so I don't know if he's going to add pressure to himself or not, but that'll make it more difficult if he does.
There's a lot of pressure on Dan, but a lot of pressure on a lot of the other anglers as well. The top 48 pros qualify for the Jacobs Cup, and this is event number 5 of a 6-event regular season. Top 48 pros qualify for the $1.5 million Jacobs Cup, and then the top 100 qualify to come back next year. So a lot of pros in this tournament jockeying for position.
I've talked to a lot of the guys, and most of the fishermen that have been in this business for years and years are saying the Jacobs Cup is the single most important event of their life. They want to make it, and they want to make it big time. So like you say, only 48 are going to make it. The pressure is on.
Speaking of big events, you had one fairly recently. You got inducted into the Pro Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Congratulations. That must have been a big honor for you.
It was, and it's great. You know, the negative part about that is you got to be 50 years old to get there, so you have to be an old man. But it was quite an honor, and I'm glad to be there. That's pretty neat.
As I've gotten older, and now that I'm not a part of the sport and I don't compete regularly, I look back, and the memories are what's important, and the people I met, and the opportunities that I've had to know people and meet people through fishing. I don't know of a greater sport. I don't know of a greater fraternity to be a part of.
The other inductees with Hank were Don Butler, Tommy Martin, Tom Mann, and TV producer Jerry McKenna. Another big honor in your life. You're now a granddad. Congratulations.
Hank Jr.'s wife had a little girl, Wendy, so we're excited about that. It gives me 4 grandkids, man. They keep me young.
All right, back to fishing now. We're going to meet 3 anglers today that you talk to, and they have different approaches to this water, Kentucky Lake.
It's going to be really interesting because they all 3 fish differently, and they look at this. Normally, you know, when the water rises, the fish follow it up. So we fish with Kevin VanDam, and that's his philosophies as a whole. And then we fished also with Dan Moorhead, and Dan's got a little something else figured out that's going to be kind of unique, and I think that gives him some advantages. And then Takahiro, he's just trying to find something solid. He hadn't found a whole lot of fish when I fished with him, so it's going to be interesting to see how these guys do.
Well, we have a lot to look forward to on this edition of FLW Outdoors, and when we come back, we'll preview Kentucky Lake.
Today's Field and Stream trivia question: which American tire company developed the first plastic worm? Today's Field and Stream trivia answer: which American tire company developed the first plastic worm? The answer: B.F. Goodrich in 1935.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. Coming up, Hank Parker will fish with Kevin VanDam, Dan Moorhead, and Takahiro Omori. First, let's get a preview of Kentucky Lake.
Well, this is a lake the FLW has been to 3 times in the past. The last time was 1998, but it's never been even nearly this high. Keep in mind as you watch this, the lake has even risen some since we talked to the anglers you're about to see.
Hang on. Oh, get in the boat, honey.
Kentucky and Barkley Lakes have the potential to be the best fishery the FLW visits this year. Few spots in the country give anglers a better chance to catch bass in the 3 to 7 pound range. Kentucky Lake is the largest man-made reservoir in the eastern U.S. and backs up the Tennessee River some 180 miles. The canal connects it with Barkley Lake, fed by the Cumberland River, which parallels Kentucky for some 50 miles. Combined, that's almost 3,400 miles of shoreline and more than 200,000 acres of water. FLW pros generally give the lakes rave reviews. Rob Kilby says he loves the miles of shoreline and how the lakes fish so big, making it easy to get away from other competitors. Tommy Biffle says the lakes are full of bushes and big fish. Tony Couch says the flipping bite will dominate. Mickey Bruce says it's a real good fishery, and he's found fish in bushes too. And Bill Chapman says he loves all the lake's fishable cover, and like Kilby, the fact that it rarely gets crowded. For an idea of the bushes and cover they're talking about, go back to the FLW's last trip to Kentucky Barkley in 1998, when much of the best action came close to dense cover. Look for anglers to rely on creature baits, jigs, and spinner baits.
Little one.
So how good is this fishery? Later in the show, you'll get a rare glimpse of what's beneath the surface of Kentucky Barkley. Suffice it to say, it's a special place.
What makes it unique, I guess, would just be the vastness of it. All the acreage, all the embayments that there are to fish. Kentucky Lake is probably more known for quality bass, where Barkley Lake is more known for quantity. You should have got a bite right there.
Not many guys know Kentucky and Barkley better than pros Dan Moorhead and Terry Bolton, a couple of Paducah boys who we followed as they fished a buddy tournament last summer. That 5-pounder came fishing deep. The lakes will fish a lot differently in the spring.
In May, when we're here for the big FLW and in the Everstart, the fish are going to be, shallow in the backs of the bays, trying to spawn, or just done spawning, so current's really not going to play a role.
There's much more on Dan Moorhead and his domination of Kentucky Lake coming up later in the show.
Oh, yeah, there's one. That's what we're looking for right there.
Oh, there's one.
There's one.
And you'll hear a lot more of that in the days to come.
Your banana boat outdoor conditions call for moderate temperatures with highs in the 70s, lows in and around the upper 50s. We'll start with cloudy skies, but work toward a 60% chance of thunderstorms by Saturday. The UV forecast is for 1s and 2s throughout the tournament. Coming up on FLW Outdoors, Hank Parker joins some of the top fishermen in the game. Kevin VanDam, Dan Moorhead, and up next, Yamaha pro Takahiro Omori.
Hey, welcome back to FLW Outdoors. I tell you, we got a challenge today, 2 challenges. Number 1 is to get Takahiro Omori here to understand my broken English and me to understand his broken English. I speak Southern and he speaks Japanese English, so we can figure this out together. I'm gonna tell you, I've always said about a tournament fisherman, to be great, you gotta have a passion for the sport. And this guy has definitely got a passion for the sport. He moved over here from Japan, came to America, couldn't even speak English because he loved to fish so much. And he's done great on the tournament circuit, and he's a very versatile fisherman, and we're gonna understand how to catch fish out of Kentucky Lake when you show us how to do it.
Okay, we can try.
All right, I like that. Takahiro, everything that I have read about fishing in Japan, it's all about finesse fishing, trying to catch smaller fish in clear water and not as much cover. So how do you deal with coming over here and all of a sudden you got all this massive cover? Did you have to change your whole fishing style?
Sure, it's a big difference. And here in the States, it had a more bigger fish and a heavy cover. And And in Japan was for fish for the smaller fish, like 6-pound test line and a spin rod. I have to change everything.
What's the average size of a lake in Japan as far as surface acres?
I said like 5 mile long, 2 mile wide.
About like a small bay on Kentucky Lake.
See here how big here, like 100 miles.
Takahiro, I think about you coming from Japan over here and having a dream to fish a bass tournament. When you won the tournament on Lake Martin, how in the world did that feel?
That was the best day of my life.
That is awesome, isn't it?
That was great. The winning the FLW and that 100,000 helped me a lot.
Have you gotten over that yet, or is it still kind of special to you when you think about it?
I'm still remember like yesterday, but it's been like 2 years.
So you're ready to win again?
I try. I fished with the hunk poker today. It's an amazing feeling to me. Just fish with him. Like when I was in Japan, I was like, I was 16 years old. I was in high school.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
Boy, you're making me feel old, really bad old.
But
I'm only 34. I'm just 2 years older than you.
well, I was 16 in high school. I really want to fish like hunk poker. Then I read the magazine. Any magazine I saw, and only a few magazines in Japan talk about bass fishing. And back then, they read the hunk poker all the time. I grew up in Japan and fish totally different stuff like this and fishing spinnerbait. Now I have a question to the Hank. How can you fish shallow water like this on a spinnerbait?
Well, in Japan, do you fish the big spinnerbaits, or what kind of baits you use?
We were fishing a smaller profile spinnerbait.
You know, when I grew up, I fished on a lake that was really, really muddy in the spring of the year, and we used spinnerbaits when the water was muddy. Then Bobby Murray turns around and wins the Bassmaster Classic, the first one ever held, out at Lake Mead in crystal clear water. So I thought, hey, you can catch a fish on a spinnerbait even in clear water. And the more I fish them, the more I've learned to change blades. You know, a lot of times when you're fishing pretty clear water, you can put on Indiana blades or willow leaf blades and go to smaller blades with bigger, heavier heads and fish it much, much, much faster. And I find that is very effective in clear water, is to just go to smaller blades on a heavy head and fish it really, really fast. Ah, there he is. Oh, you don't get the penalty.
Maybe.
Good fish. Good fish.
Yes. I need to save it for the tournament on this.
That wasn't very nice. I wasn't ready. You didn't wait on me.
Checking results from the BFL Gulf Coast Division, the event held on the Tensas River. Alan Swart of Pascagoula, Mississippi got the win with 8 pounds, 15 ounces. And the Texas Tournament Trail was on Lake Louisville, the season's only 2-day event, and Tommy Durham of Waxahachie, Texas got the win with 21 pounds, 11 ounces.
And welcome back to Walmart FLW Outdoors. We are previewing the Kentucky Lake event, the 5th stop on the FLW Tour.
And Taylor, 5 events into this 6-event regular season. It's kind of fun to take a look at the team standings now. Snickers is out in front. They've had a great year, anchored by the first victory on Okeechobee by Pat Fisher, nearly 15 points ahead of second place, Team Stanley. Then a nice tight battle for 3rd and 4th place between Castrol and Lowry's. Kellogg's is in 5th place, followed by Banana Boat in 6th place.
All right, so what does it take to win on Kentucky Lake? Well, we all know that few anglers know that better than Kentucky's own Dan Moorhead.
this has been a year that I hope I never wake up. Whatever I'm doing, I hope I keep doing it, and just ride it right on into the Jacobs Cup. Dan Moorhead, minutes before winning the Walmart Open on Beaver Lake and recording the biggest payday of his career in what has been his best season ever. A whirlwind of 3 top 10 finishes in 4 events and a commanding lead in the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race. Yet as incredible as this year's been, it doesn't rival Moorhead's first FLW win. The one on his home lake, the one his father got to see firsthand. And it's a story Dan Moorhead loves to tell. One of the best memories I've had in my fishing career, is the FLW I won at home here on Kentucky Lake. Dad was following me that morning. He was, with me in my every move, and he had a friend of his with him in the boat, and then a little later in the day, he was in the camera boat. And so he was there in close proximity with me, and he got to watch my every move. He never talked to me. He didn't want to, bother my concentration or anything. It was special knowing I had my #1 fan right there with me at all times. He's my faithful shadow. Love him to death. We hunt and fish, and we're always doing something together. More like a best friend than a dad. At the end, he left to go get a seat, a good seat on stage and everything, and to watch the weigh-in. And at that time, he knew what I had, and he also knew what the other competitors had, and he didn't think I had enough to win. And at that time, I didn't. And when he left, I pulled up on that last spot and caught a 5-pounder and a 4-pounder and a 3-pounder almost back-to-back cast. And that's what gave me the win, put me over the top. And he didn't know that until the weigh-in, so the drama and the build-up and everything was really something to watch. Oh, God, please stay on. Oh, my God. Yeah! You betcha!
Doc Moorhead knew what the win meant to Dan and his career. Not just because of the years of fishing together, but because Doc had been a pro angler too. He even had an 11th place finish in an FLW event. Doc was also an orthopedic surgeon, yet when Dan decided on a pro fishing career in 1995, there was no handout. Dan went to his banker and borrowed $50,000.
When I married my wife, I had $4,000 left of that money. I was 46 grand in the hole. I got fortunate and I won the Potomac River Top 100. I paid everything off, and I've never owed anybody a dime since.
And now, 8 years later, Dan's a 2-time winner on tour and sitting on top of the fishing world. Back to the Walmart Open, and the moments before he got that second win, there was one thing missing. Doc Moorhead wasn't there.
But right now, he's in Walmart in Benton, Kentucky, and I know he's watching me. Captain, I love you. You are #1 and will always be my hero. I just love it. I owe him everything. He never left me on the bank. We've always fished together.
And a lot of folks would be surprised if Dan Moorhead is not a big factor on this lake. And you'll see why in just a minute. He fished with Hank Parker and caught some big fish. Dan Moorhead on the water with Hank Parker next on FLW Outdoors.
I'm assuming it's your ultimate goal to win Angler of the Year.
Well, it is. I mean, that's a crown jewel that I've never had the chance at before. So I mean, that's important to me. But my goal and my focus right now is on winning the Jacobs Cup. And I know that sounds silly, but $500,000. That's a mouthful.
I like that river too.
Good. Mark the map for me. Well, I'm just banking on about 28 years of knowledge fishing this lake. This will be won on a jig, there's no question about that.
All right, wait a minute, we're going to quote this.
I do believe that.
I think your home field advantage is about 6 foot underwater.
In some ways, I mean, it all depends. If my pattern holds true, I know the bushes, I know still where the bushes are and they don't, so.
There's a fish.
He's not much of one, but I got him.
He's all yours.
I think he went and caught another one.
Well, the old bush.
Another keeper. Look at there.
How about that?
Every time we start talking serious, a fish interrupts us.
Well, I'm trying to disrupt your thought pattern where you'll leave me a bush.
Sounds like a banjo string back there when you jerk.
I get pretty excited. This is one of my favorite lakes in the whole world.
That's mine too.
I think it's one of the most beautiful lakes. I think it's got a great fish population. And when you flip that jig down in the bush, you never know what's going to be on the other side, and it just is a rush.
There he is. I saw him.
I had him.
He's about a 2-pounder, look like.
I think he's about 7 or 8.
Okay. Flip that bush right there, Hank. There's got to be one right there. You've got everything you want here, Shell. I knew there'd be one there.
You called it.
Yeah, you're welcome on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. You're an awesome guide, Dan.
Wait till you get the bill. Well, I don't know if that was, it just got heavy and you got me trigger happy, so I jerked.
Look at this. You go, boy.
Everybody says they've dubbed me the next Jimmy Houston the way I kiss them all, so I guess I've got to hold true to that, huh?
You kiss them?
I kiss
Good, gracious.
I love every one of them.
I'm going to tell you something about Jimmy, just between me and you.
This ought to be good.
Jimmy does a little French kiss on him.
No, I'm not going that far.
Of course, what else can you say about a 57-year-old man with bangs? I mean, you'd expect that, wouldn't you?
Okay. I didn't miss mine.
He caught him. That was my fish, and it's a big one, a real big one. Danny, you got it figured out, man. You know, I picked you to win this whole thing. And then I got worried about it when we got all this water influx, but now that I fished with you, I'm not worried. I think I made a good choice.
Well, I appreciate it. I feel pretty good about it. We'll see how it goes.
Now, we did all this cherry picking and got these little bushes. I'm fixing to go fish with Kevin. You think we're going to slow down and fish these little bushes?
He'll part your hair, he'll fish you fast.
Hey, coming up next, we got Kevin VanDam. Stay with us.
Checking results from the RCL Walleye League in the Minnesota division, the winner Chuck Doob from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. His weight was 21 pounds, 7 ounces.
FLW Outdoors continues from Kentucky Lake. I'm Taylor Carr with Carlton Wayne.
And we just talked about the RCL Walleye League. The big boys on the RCL Tour just completed their second event of the 2003 season. Here's what happened on Lake Sharp in Pierce, South Dakota.
It's day 3 here at Lake Sharp in the RCL Tour event out of Pierce, South Dakota. Semi-final round, we sent 20 boats out this morning, and 2 patterns are starting to emerge. Towards the dam, we've got colder water, about 46, 47 degrees, and we've got the jig and live bait pitchers up here pitching the shorelines. Now, another contingent of the semifinalists went on down the reservoir, some 30, even 40 miles down, and they're basically pulling crankbaits in the warmer, mid-50 degree water down there. We're going to find out at weigh-in today which pattern is working here at Lake Sharp, and we'll get these anglers into the final round tomorrow.
The weigh-in at a no-call event reveals not only the fish-catching ability of the pros, but which pros correctly picked which keepers to keep and which to toss back. Longtime veteran Mark Martin brought up a 6-fish limit, but missed the cut by 4 ounces. The cut line proved to be 9 pounds, 15 ounces, turned in by Minnesota's Richard Nasick, a finalist at last year's RCL Championship. The 3 top pros heading into the final round were South Dakota's own Mac McComsey, Indiana's Jeff Kester, and another RCL finalist, Joe Wilson out of Rolling Stone, Minnesota. Saturday's final round brought rain and wind, and most of the finalists caught a little hail.
Before our next cast, the wind picked up, and we didn't know what to do. Tried trolling my sandbar there, come back, tried anchoring. We tried everything, and that wind. Can't stand it.
Local angler Darrell Swank held the lead through most of the weigh-in until another local pro, Mac McComsey, took the stage.
13 pounds, 1 ounce, 13-1.
McComsey's lead held for the win and a $50,000 first-place check, plus a fully rigged Ranger boat. His co-angler Chad Wisco won $15,000. In spite of the victory, the winner was tight-lipped about his secret bait.
What's been your best bait there? Jigging plastic.
What kind of plastic? Now, let's be a little more specific. Come on.
Mark, I can't tell you that.
They're gonna find out anyway.
No, I don't think they will.
You know, the walleye as a species is found all over this country. In fact, they're in this lake, Kentucky Lake.
Of course, our anglers this week will be focusing on the bass, and that's one of the jobs of the Kentucky Department of Natural Resources. And we spent some time on the water with some fishery biologists to study how they maintain the health of Kentucky Lake. If you ever feared subtle movements and noises in a boat may spook fish away from your area, this may disprove those thoughts. We had no trouble locating plenty of keepers directly under our boat in spite of a gas-powered generator bolted directly to the flooring of an aluminum boat. We weren't exactly racing across the water in a Ranger, but the ride was thrilling in a different way. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources utilizes a little shock value as it monitors the health of Kentucky Lake.
We do 30-minute runs. At the end of every 30 minutes, we stop and we work up the fish. We measure them, weigh them. We can look for parasites, any types of problems that we see with the bass, poor condition, and then we will release them back. And from those numbers, we've got 16 years of data where we've done this for 16 consecutive years, and we can follow the trends of the bass fishery.
The electricity temporarily stuns the fish, allowing them to float to the surface, where biologists can then study their size and health. Within a few minutes, the biologists have what they need, and the fish are awake and ready to return.
2003, we ought to see a lot of fish right at 15 inches. Again, we're recovering from a few poor year classes. The number of 20-inch and larger fish are down, but there ought to still be a large number of fish that have just broken over to 15-inch.
One of the more entertaining aspects of this task is the frustrated angler who can't catch the fish that are right there.
And we've put many fishermen to shame. If they start complaining, we can ask them where they fished, and we can go back through that same area that they just fished and find fish. It's just they couldn't get them to bite.
Thanks to the dedicated efforts of fishery biologists like Paul Rister, Kentucky Lake continues to be one of the great places in America to fish.
And you were fishing real slow in that shock boat. Somebody who's known for fishing fast is Kevin VanDam. We'll find out how fast when he fishes with Hank Parker coming up next.
Kevin is the one guy that breaks every rule in tournament fishing. I wish he would have been here when I was a kid. Everybody said you fish too fast. If you'd just slow down, it would amaze you how many more fish you can catch. Well, here's a guy that fishes twice as fast as I've ever fished and catches more fish than I ever caught. So he breaks all the rules and still catches all the fish.
Oh, God. There's one. Good fish. Catch him. Good. There. A one-eyed fish, a no-eyed fish. No, one-eye.
Missing one eye.
One-eye.
Look at that. Worm hook.
Worm hook.
Somebody cut him off, and look at he's still going strong.
He bit again.
You got one? Oh. Oh, big one. They're schooling. Sure you can get some bites on. There'll be some good fish.
No, but he's all right. He's about 4 or 5 pounds. 7 or 8 pounds.
Yeah. That's chunky.
He's a bass.
And he ate a spinnerbait.
Yeah, he ate a spinnerbait. I think if you had to sit back at home and draw up a plan to say a perfect tournament for Kevin VanDam, you just drew it up.
I might have not put the lake up quite this high, but...
I don't know. I think this is going to be your little deal. I'm throwing as fast as I can. I can't keep up with you. And I like to fish what most people call fast.
Well, when you're practicing, though, you know, I'm not trying to catch everyone that's in the area, just enough to know that, hey, that's a good place to be.
We're talking about your consistency. We talk about fishing fast. We talk about covering water. We talk about adversity. We talk about all the things that you've dealt with. You've been doing this, you're what, 35?
35.
You started fishing seriously when you were 16?
Yeah, I fished a lot of tournaments from when I got my driver's license. So.
How old were you when you won your first tournament in Michigan?
14.
God, that is amazing. And you're still just as fired up as you were when you were 14.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, like I say, if you don't love it, you just, you know, you're not going to do well at it. But I mean, I've always loved it. I've loved the competition of it. You know, from my first bass club days. You know, when you win that first tournament, you're done from that point on. You know, there's nothing. You know, second place just isn't going to get it anymore.
How many times have you finished second in the FLW?
I don't even want to count. 4 times, yeah. I have not won one of these yet, and it's just been one of those things that's been real tough.
Is that eating on you just a little bit?
You know, the only thing you can do is put yourself in position, and sooner or later, it's got to happen. You know, I mean, if you keep knocking on the door.
You finish second more than anybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's better than third.
Yeah, that's right. Not quite as good as first.
Not quite as good as first.
You're working on it.
I've had my opportunities too. It's just, you know, it'll come.
Well, I believe that. While Kevin's fishing 95 miles an hour, we're going to go to a commercial break, but we'll be right back with more with Kevin VanDam on flooded Kentucky Lake right after this. What do you think about changing baits? Do you think it's going to be one of these deals where you need to really fine-tune your spinnerbait? You think with this clear water you're going to have to come up with a different blade or bait combination, or you think just throw it and wind it?
Well, I'm going to throw probably 3 or 4 different spinnerbaits, Hank. In this clear water, it's going to be real important to have something like this with a translucent skirt, and you know, something that looks real natural. And then in the areas, because there's a lot of areas where it's still real dirty, you know, then I want something bright, you know, chartreuse and thumper blades. And here you want, you know, I want something I can pull a little faster, so those willow blades, you know, they pull a little quicker, and they have a lot of flash, so it's good for that clear water.
What's that?
It's 9 foot deep right here. Still should catch something on this stuff, though.
You always use the long rods for even throwing a spinnerbait?
I don't. When I get where I'm really going tight, you know, and the water's dirty where I can make short casts, I'll use that. I use a 6-footer with a short handle. Like just like what you got right there, pretty much.
I can't believe that.
Straight handle, though, I like that.
Yeah.
But the shorter the rod, the more accurate you're going to be.
There he is, a big one.
But so much of this, you know, you're trying to make a long, accurate cast. That longer 2-handled rod works. But the key to a good spinnerbait rod is that right there, is having that flexible tip.
Being able to load it. You caught that fish out of a bush, you know.
Green bush. It's a big one, too.
Well, I used to tell everybody all the time, I said, now let me tell you, when you use a spinnerbait, you need to be able to do that little roll cast. You need a 5.5-foot rod with a pistol grip, unless you're Kevin VanDam. He uses a 7-foot rod and 2-handed just as accurate. Well, I'm going to tell you what, you got a little bit of work, but I think this tournament's going to be a turning point for you, and I think you're going to get there, and I'm excited about you getting there. I want to watch that.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to getting a chance to go there. So I'm going to give it my best this week. You know, the lake's really fitting my style of fishing, and it's just a matter of getting out there and finding the right areas and then executing during the tournament.
I don't want to bore you, but I do want to reiterate, and I don't know we were going so fast whether all the viewers heard it or not, but we talk about fishing a lake that is 7 foot above flood stage, and the way you like to fish and your style of fishing is just cover water, cover water. So I know your philosophy before I even ask you, so I don't want to ask a stupid question, but at the same time I want everybody, your philosophy is here, you just cover the water, and cover the water and cover the water.
Yeah, you know, I mean, with so much, you can look back there, they got a million places to hide. So, you know, fishing fast and covering the water, trying to get that bait in front of as many fish as possible in a day's time is what I feel like, you know, looking for those aggressive fish is going to be the best way to do well when it's like this. If you fish real slow, if you're in an area where there's not many fish, you're not going to catch many. But if you can fish fast, even if there's not a lot of fish, you hit those key places, you know, those key ambush points, you know, the little
trees on the points and the clumps of grass and that, you're going to get your bait in front of a lot of fish in a day's time.
Well, now this won't air until after the event is over, so your whole key is to find areas like this big field and this flat where you can reach the bank opposed to trying to come to the bank where all the jungle is.
You got to get, right now you got to get to the bank to catch fish. I mean, they're wanting to be shallow. Yeah, there's a few suspending in some of this cover, but look how much of it's there. It's just like a needle in a hay field there. Over here, at least you can get your lure to where a bass is at. And, you know, the more places that you can find like this that have a lot of shad in them and, you know, the right cover, you know, if you can get some with maybe the wind's blowing into it, it's going to make it even that much better. So I'm trying to find areas all over the lake that have this kind of stuff that I can get to the bank with that good flooded cover, and hopefully I'll do well.
Well, I can tell you this, if I was in this field and I heard Kevin VanDam was coming, I'd come out with my fins up if I were a bass.
I'm here with Pam Wood, one of the up-and-coming women on the FLW Tour. Pam, you're one of 6 of a growing number of women on the FLW Tour today. Tell me a little bit about how you got your start in bass fishing.
Actually, we have a little pond out behind our house where I grew up, and it seems like we were always walking out back. My grandmothers both loved to fish, and it seems like at least, you know, on every day, one of them was down there fishing, so we would take off down there and fish with them. And, you know, our whole family loved to fish, and it just seemed like we always planned our family vacations around some type of body of water so that we could take our fishing poles and go fishing.
And you also have an interesting way. It makes it a lot of fun when you fish these events. You and your family split the winnings, actually.
Right. It makes it a little easier to come home with something in your pocket. What we do is whoever wins the check gets to keep half, and the other 2 get the other, you know, the 4th. And they also drive the camera boats, and we do the same thing with their camera boat earnings. You know, that way we all come home with a little something to offset our expenses.
I'll tell you, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors and the home stretch of our preview of Kentucky Lake.
It's now time for your question in this week's Ask a Pro segment. Ivan Cardenas of Ontario, Canada writes, what types of bait do you use when flipping or pitching, and how do you rig them? Well, Ivan, your answer comes from Yamaha Pro Greg Carpenter.
Well, Ivan, more times than not, I'll pick up the Mismo tube to flip or pitch with. It's really been good to me. A lot of times I use 20 to 25 pound test line on the tube, usually a 1/4 to 3/8 ounce weight. I use a HP keeper hook. I put a glass rattle in the head of the tube to trigger a strike with. There was a bite right there. Usually when flipping a jig, I flip it in heavy mat, usually 12 to 16 foot deep on the edge of a hydrilla bed. That's when I generally use the jig on my flipping technique.
Hank Parker rejoins us now out on the water today with 3 anglers, and you saw a lot of this lake, Hank. 3 different approaches to Kentucky Lake.
It is so interesting to be on this side and watch these guys. You look at Takahiro, he is really struggling. He didn't have any kind of pattern put together. Kevin's got a mindset that the fish are going to follow the water up, and he's determined to find those fish as they move up in the fields and the grass and the open water, eliminating all the bank with trees on it. And then Dan Moorhead is fishing the bushes that are underneath the water as if the fish didn't move up. So it's interesting to watch these 3 guys and put this whole thing together, but to see how it unfolds. You watch Takahiro, he will find some fish before this thing's over, and so will Kevin. Dan's got a good solid pattern now, and it's just interesting to see if it holds up.
I think you maybe think Dan's got this thing figured out pretty well.
I was very impressed with Dan. He told me exactly what was going to happen. He told me exactly the kind of cover he was looking for. We caught a 4 or 5 pounder. I lost 2 or 3 good fish. He caught one about 7 pounds. It was pretty impressive.
All right, it's time for our Snicker Sneak preview now. You're going way out on a limb with this one, aren't you?
And I just pulled that name out of a hat. I had all the... This guy is hot as a bomb. I fished with his dad, Charles, here on this lake 25 years ago. So they've got a lot of knowledge, and Dan puts it all together. He's won here before, so how could you not pick Dan Moorhead to win?
Hank picks Dan Moorhead.
I'm going with Terry Bolton. Terry's another guy who has a good local knowledge of both Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. He's won on the EverStart side. He's won a 2nd place, a 3rd place, and a 4th place. So he's done well with that local knowledge. And he's hot. Last 2 tournaments, he's got top 30 finishes.
All right, I'm going to pick Wesley Strader. He knows the Tennessee River system. He's a good shallow water fisherman. He's done well on Kentucky Lake. I say watch for Wesley Strader.
And of course, all 3 of these guys and the rest of our field hoping to qualify for that Jacobs Cup. We've talked a little bit about that for the anglers, $1.5 million on the line, but for the fans, this is going to be a great show in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, big trade show, 4 days going on in September. They should make plans to attend because this is going to be a thing you don't want to miss.
It's going to be great, and to watch these guys deal with the tidal water and all the adversities of a tidal river, just like they've dealt with flooded lakes all year, it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
For information on the Jacobs Cup, go to FLWOutdoors.com or richmondva.org and make your plans to come to Richmond in September.
It will be historic, and thank you for joining us on this edition of FLW Outdoors. Be sure to tune in next week when we will crown a winner on Kentucky Lake.
またこの次に続きます。チャンネルそのままで
チャンネルそのままで
It's hard to speak Japanese, but speaking Japanese is more difficult now to me. Because too many people want to speak Japanese.
There's only 3 million on television, so lighten up.